Sean here with BaseMint Comics, and it is the night before New Comic Book Day. And so what I've been doing is I've been sort of talking about last week's books before I head off to the shop to pick up new books. And so it works out the best time to do this is Tuesday nights before New Comic Book Day. So I was going to talk about a couple of books that I picked up last week. So first up, I was going to talk a little bit about Omega Kids. This was a book that I was kind of on the fence about in the Age of Revelation thing, because I'm not the biggest Quentin Quire fan, and I kind of went on a little bit about that in the last issue, or last episode. Not even the last one, because the last one was the Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange. In the last Wednesday video, I talked about how not the biggest Quentin Quire fan. But when I was reading this, I thought about that because one of the things that happens in this is Quentin is clearly working for Cypher, Revelation, but he's Doug Ramsey to me. And he's training a bunch of kids to kind of like, they're sort of like, there's a little bit of a Minority Report angle maybe going on here, where they're like psychically detecting when people are going to turn against Revelation in this, and stopping them, like kind of projecting something into their mind. And so that's kind of like the world that you're living in this issue. And then the thing that I liked was that Quentin Quire kind of got Quentin Quired in this issue, where like the kids that he's training are actually like psychically projecting him to think that he's training them, and they're off in kind of their own little place doing something. What that is, not 100% sure. We're saving it for issue 2. But I kind of liked Quentin Quire getting a little bit of his own comeuppance, and I kind of felt bad for him in the end of this issue, which I wasn't expecting. This issue, topical as all get out, because I believe this is now like 2 weeks old, but I really enjoyed the end of the Cohen era and Gary Duggan's run on Iron Man, where Tony and Emma were like pretending to be married, and that's sort of a little bit carried over into this, kind of that relationship. And it's just sort of, oh man, Hank's going crazy upstairs watching hockey. It's just kind of an interesting issue where Emma is sort of like, it jumps in between 2 points, where Emma is injured and then becomes like fully Diamond and is not able to use her telepathic powers. And so as far as Emma stories go, I thought it was pretty interesting, and was definitely one of the highlights so far of the Age of Revelation for me. And another one that kind of threw me for a loop was The Last Wolverine. I liked the initial From the Ashes run of Wolverine, where they introduced this Wendigo kid, and I didn't have high hopes for this issue if you went back and watched last week's episode. But the thing that really caught me off guard pleasantly was, so Wendigo is clearly taken over for Wolverine, and he's the new Wolverine, but he's kind of like lovable, which was sort of adorable to see, kind of like this Wolverine that was like cheery and happy, and clearly trying to make up for some of the bad stuff that our Wolverine is doing. But like I said, it was the thing that I kind of enjoyed was this like Wolverine who's fully embraced being a hero, and not typically our Logan. And he also visits Kurt, who is like happily married to a character from the Uncanny X-Men, current Uncanny X-Men run, and I kind of enjoyed that. Kurt's my favorite comic book character in general, and seeing him happy with the family was nice. And then it ends with a very cool cliffhanger, revealing that Wolverine is Logan is in this time period. I don't think it's an alternate universe. It's supposed to be like a 10-year jump. Is married to Vindicator, and she wants to rescue Logan, so she recruits this Wendigo Wolverine. So a book that I had like mediocre expectations for actually wound up kind of being better than I thought it was going to be. And then Radioactive Spider-Man, which was the Age of Revelation title that I was most excited for, was a little bit weirder than I wanted it to be. But I really, really enjoyed the Kev Walker art. Thought that dude looks really cool. I was like, I'd buy a Marvel Legend of that dude. That's a cool looking guy. Spider-Man was fun, but the thing that I really liked about this issue is he's in a relationship with Dr. Cecilia Reyes. And Cecilia Reyes is an X-Men character that was introduced in the Operation Zero Tolerance crossover from the summer of 1997. And that is like one of my favorite time periods from growing up as a kid, reading the X-Men books. I really dug that. It's kind of like I was too young and not reading comics yet when the Mutant Massacre happened. And the thing that I loved about that sort of like retroactively reading the X-Men books, I completely get how fantastic the Mutant Massacre and how truthfully, I think the fallout of the Mutant Massacre with the characters winding up in the Australian outback and the X-Men kind of on the run, hiding out because they're so like wounded by what happened, was like what made that run as special as it is. And for me, that's what Operation Zero Tolerance was. And the other thing that I really, really liked about that run is the fact that it put Iceman for the first time in kind of a leadership role in that storyline. Our main contingent of X-Men, half the group is like in space dealing with the Shi'ar thing. And then the other half, like your main like Cyclops, Jean, Wolverine, are all captured. And so you've got Iceman, who's basically running around and finding new X-Men. And Dr. Cecilia Reyes is one of them, and she's a fantastic character. And she is a character that I feel could have been better utilized throughout the years in X-Men lore and as a character. So I was excited to see kind of a version of her here who is sort of like in a relationship with Peter and helping him through, because he's obviously been affected by this radiation, hence Radioactive Spider-Man, but he's sticking around because that's what Peter does. You know, he's a hero and he wants to help out. And it is revealed at the very end of this issue that Aunt May is a mutant, I'm assuming, which is all sorts of interesting. So yeah, excited to see Dr. Cecilia Reyes, and always enjoy a weird Spider-Man story. And so then the book that I was looking forward to the most last week, and the book that I did enjoy the most last week, was Fantastic Four number 730, which is the, I guess, second volume of Ryan North's run, and it involves... it's a little bit of a weird book where they... Alicia comes home. Your first page here is Ben talking to her about how they have gotten a dog, and she is, it's clearly revealed to be a hideous monster, but they can't tell that. And Alicia kind of can at first touch of this thing, but then it quickly kind of sinks its claws into her, and she is projecting in her mind that it is a cute, cuddly dog. But for some odd reason, there's something kind of tickling the back of her brain saying that this character isn't what she thinks it is. And there's a really great part of the issue where she goes to read, and, you know, I just think that Ryan North has a really great handle on every single individual on this team, and the focus on the family, and the fact that like Joe and Nick are part of it, and that Alicia's a part of it, that the Fantastic Four isn't just the four, but it's the entire, like, it's the group, you know, it's the whole of them. It includes the Future Foundation. It's everything. It's one big, ginormous, happy, you know, Swiss Family Robinson, Explorer, Imaginaut, you know, Like, he just gets the Fantastic Four. And so she kind of brings the idea, like, she sort of mentions to, like, she finds Reed and she's like, hey, like, I think that there's something, like, could, like, hypothetically, she says, if there was a creature that looked scary, like really scary, but it wanted everyone to see it as something friendly and not threatening, how would it do it? And, you know, she's narrating this, and she's like, if you ask most people for the impossible, they tell you it can't be done. They hit the reasonable limits of reason itself, and so they stop. But not Reed. He'll assume it can be done. He'll figure it out. He'll figure out what a universe where it could happen looks like, and then he'll see if he can make our universe look like that too. And I just thought that was a fantastic, like, narration of how Reed's mind works, and a really, like, succinct, interesting way to kind of portray to a reader that might possibly be picking this run up after seeing the Fantastic Four movie and really, like, grasping the way Reed's mind works. And so he explains this theory, which I completely understood but didn't know the name of it, and I keep on forgetting. Pareidolia, which is where you see objects that look like faces, and so your mind, like, makes it look like a face. Like, you look at an electrical outlet and it looks like a frowny face or whatever. And so he goes on to explain that, like, you know, we sort of see this, and it, you know, it's a bit comforting, and that Alicia is projecting what she thinks it is in her mind, because she obviously doesn't have sight. So if there was a situation where there was, like, a creature doing this, that she would be less susceptible to it. And so then Sue comes down with the creature that is obviously doing this. So Alicia, she gets out of there. And then Reed sort of, like, realizes, like, it's kind of funny because in the issue, he's like, Reed's research log supplemental. It's late, way past the time when biology demands I spend time unconscious and intermittently hallucinating, which I just thought was such a Reed way to explain sleeping and dreaming. But sleep can wait. Alicia's hypothetical has stayed with me. A creature, she said. What would cause her thoughts to move along those lines? None of the presentations at her conference suggest anything close to it. In fact, the only new stimulus I can find is our dog, Jellybean. And so, like, clearly, her even bringing this hypothetical to Reed has, like, caused him to be like, something's off. Like, what would make her think this? And the only variable he could find is their new dog. So that must be it. And so he builds this device to block to inhibit the pareidolia. And then he unleashes that the next morning at breakfast, and everyone sees the monster in their midst. And then they realize that this is much more widespread, and that this is like a alien species that has infected our world. And their thing is that they kind of go and, like, lull everyone into this, like, oh, we're these cute little creatures, and then they eat them or destroy them or whatever. And so they discover that this is the case, and hooray, they save the day, like the Fantastic Four would. And then Reed brings up the fact that, hey, we wouldn't have been able to do this without Alicia, you know, and how she's a member of the Fantastic Four. And then she asks for a costume. She's like, hey, I should get a costume, because I'm, you know, I'd settle for a flying bathtub. So that was Fantastic Four number 730, which was awesome. It's indicative of Ryan North and Humberto Ramos's run on the book right now, which is a lot of fun, like, one-off kind of scientific, just sort of, like, great, just single issue fun stories. I'm certain that there are probably people out there who are like, I can't wait till they fight the Puppet Master again. But we've all been reading comic books long enough to understand that this is cyclical. And much like the Krakoa of the X-Men era, where people were like, this ain't going to last forever, neither is this. And it's just a fun breath of fresh air for a title that Marvel ignored for a good chunk of time, which was very disappointing to me, being a Fantastic Four fan. So I kind of like this breath of fresh air. And, we have One World Under Doom going on for a big Fantastic Four event. But these are fun little, you can just pick this up and read it. It's a fun Fantastic Four tales that encaptures why they're Marvel's first family. So definitely cool there. And that was my favorite book of last week.
Snap fireflies into the night. It's my heart that fuels this fire. Time cuts deadlines deep into my mind. In my thoughts full of their lies. But all I hear is their voices in my head, screaming better left for dead. But they can't stop the beating of my heart. All I need is a spark to start this fire. All I need is a spark to start this fire. All I need is a spark to start this fire. Let's turn it up and go till I grow immune to it. It's my heart that fuels this fire. So I keep taking their functions, but I still hear them. Their voices in my head, screaming better left for dead. But they can't stop the beating of my heart. All I need is a spark to start this fire. All I need is a spark to start this fire. All I need is a spark to start this fire. Let's turn it up and go. There are voices in my head, screaming better left for dead. But they can't stop the beating of my heart. The beating of my heart. They can't stop the beating of my heart. All I need is a spark to start this fire. All I need is a spark to start this fire. All I need is a spark to start this fire. Let's turn it up and go.
Sean here with BaseMint Comics, and it's Wednesday, October 29th, and as you could see by the ride that I just did, it was solo, because my main man, Hank, yesterday woke up with a case of the sniffles. We had gone to the zoo to do, they do this, decorated at night for Halloween, and the kids get to walk around and trick-or-treat, so we did that with some family, and I think he caught something there. And I'm hoping that it's cleared out of his system by Halloween, because this is the first year that he's into Halloween and jazzed for it. And so, fingers crossed. So the idea of taking him out in the bike in some, 50-degree weather wasn't probably the best idea. So his friends at the shop missed him. He was bummed that he didn't get to go. But, he got to lie around in his pajamas all day watching a Bluey marathon. So, that's pretty good. Anyways, I've made tea in this awesome ex-babies riding a bike. Henry and I have this on shirts that match, because that's how we roll. But obviously made it up to the shop to pick up this week's books, and so I was going to go through those so you can see what I grabbed. And there were, so here we go. Earlier last night, you got my thoughts on last week's books, which were surprisingly better than I had anticipated for quite a few of those. And so I'm kind of hoping for a little bit of the same this week's books. So first up, I picked up the final issue of Imperial. Obviously, this was a series that I picked up because it was written by Jonathan Hickman, and he has loved his Avengers run, loved his Fantastic Four run. I loved the start of Krakoa and the promise of Krakoa, but then he left due to editorial interference, and that sort of just fizzled out and crashed the car. And so I was like, oh, hey, you know, maybe this will carry over some of that Shi'ar stuff that he was talking about, and it didn't. And that was kind of a bummer for me. I really liked the Lalandra Xavier issue, but sort of the rest of it clearly appears to be setting up a cosmic status quo and books that I am not picking up. So this series will most likely get bundled together and put up on eBay and sent over to some person who wants it more than I do, because I wasn't that impressed with it. But I will say this till I'm blue in the face. I pre-ordered it from my shop, and if I pre-order it from my shop, I gotta pick it up. I can't stick them with stuff. So that is the rub of being a comic book fan and having to pre-order stuff based on tiny solicitations, which have gotten worse and worse throughout the years. My favorite is when they put out the solicitations for books and they're like nothing. They're like, oh, it's classified. And then you're like, okay, I gotta guess, I think that it's gotta be horrible for shops. I don't know. I've never owned a shop. I live in a what looks like a shop in my basement, but I wouldn't want to own a shop. Anyways, book I am jazzed about, but I got to reread number 1. You know how that goes. Like, I don't know. When I was younger, I'd like read them over and over during the week, but it's been a month since I've read Battle World number 1, and so Battle World number 2 came out, and I'm looking forward to it, and I enjoyed the first issue of the series, and I appreciate recap pages, but I think for minis like this, I wouldn't mind giving the old refresher with the issue number 1, but I am jazzed that issue number 2 is coming out, because so far, issue number 1 was more fun than I initially expected, and I really like Christos Gage's writing, and Marcos Toe is on art, and he's pretty good, so I'm pretty jazzed about that. Up next is a book that has no right to be as good as it is, which is Black Cat number 3. This was a book that for issue number 1 I did not pre-order because I was like, in what universe am I gonna love reading a Black Cat book? And then as I was reading all the Spider-Man stuff, I was like falling for Felicia and her and Peter's relationship more than I ever thought that I would. And so this popped up and I was like, first issue was great, second issue was great. I imagine the third issue is going to be great. So I'm looking forward to this. It's a great title. Definitely check it out. Art's fun. It's cartoony and kind of like a, it's the guy's name is Gleb Melnikov. But it's kind of a, reminds me of Mike Wieringo, kind of in that, you know, classic cartoony style. So Black Cat's been a fun ride. Up next is The Death of Silver Surfer number 5. Again, this was another mini-series that I didn't pick up. There's actually quite a few here. That I did not pick up the first issue of. I didn't pre-order it. And then I had sort of heard good things about the first issue, and so I kind of jumped on board after that, and I've been enjoying it. And clearly they're working towards introducing a female Silver Surfer, which I'm sure will send certain elements of the internet aghast. You know, but it can't be any worse than that time that they like made Nick Fury Samuel L. Jackson, right? So far, the first 4 issues have been fun, so I'm looking forward to this wrapping up. And speaking of miniseries that I didn't grab that I didn't pre-order the first issue, but I got sucked into the first issue because when I opened it, it had this great Claremont era X-Men double page spread, and Emma Frost, the White Queen, number 5. Not my favorite covers, but the story has been pretty good, and I am a sucker, obviously, for X-Men stuff, and I am certainly a sucker for X-Men stuff that takes place during a, that Hellfire Club, Dark Phoenix Saga era, so this one sort of scratches that itch, but I will admit that if I had known that that great splash page of the X-Men in the Hellfire Club of that era was only for that one book, and then it was going to kind of just be a straight Emma story, I would not have signed up for the rest of that. Maybe waited for a trade, maybe, or see how it all panned out. But again, I got jazzed by the first issue, added it to my pull list, and so I'm seeing it through. A book that I am very excited for and have been enjoying immensely is The Immortal Thor number 3. The Immortal Thor was a really fun book. I think it flew under the radar. I don't think it was I know, like, The Immortal Hulk was talked about a lot. I read that in its entirety. Didn't really do a ton for me. But this has been a ton of fun. So I've been enjoying that. I'm looking forward to reading it. I really like Pasquale Ferry's art, and I think he is a good fit for Thor books. I think he's a good fit for Thor books in Asgard, but this obviously is not taking place on Asgard, but it still holds up. He's a great artist, and it's a good book. So next in the Expatriate or Age of Revelation stuff, obviously, you know what's coming, is Expatriate X-Men. And this appears to be an X-Men team. Is this written by yeah. Oh, no, Eve L. Ewing. Okay. There's a lot of Ewings writing right now. So this is a team that's clearly being led by Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. And, like, you know, again, sucker for an X-Men book. So this was right. I got high hopes. This is kind of like one of those, when I saw the cover, I was like, okay, this could be interesting, or it could go sideways very quickly. Has some of the classics, but also introduced a bunch of the new characters from the Ashes era. So I assume this one is sort of like taking place of the Kitty Pryde Exceptional X-Men, especially because 2 of the kids from that title are in this book, but obviously 10 years later, so they're grown up. So it'll be interesting to get a future version of them. And then I grabbed X-Avengers number 1. And this one was probably the one I was most excited for. It's got Hawkeye and Vision and Cannonball. Looks like Shang-Chi, Danny Moonstar. So this should be an interesting one. And there were 2 other books that came out. Cloak and Dagger and Undeadpool, and I flipped through them and was kind of carrying them around with me in the store, but when they pulled out my pull box, I'd ordered a trade, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and so I was kind of like, and I flipped through the Cloak and Dagger book, and the art looked really good, and I was kind of like, I could probably be suckered, and, you know, the X-Men itch, the completionist in me is like, oh man, I should. But the series doesn't seem, the overarching, like, vibe of the Age of Revelation thing doesn't feel as connected as other events in X-Men's past. So I felt a little bit easier, like, picking and choosing what I wanted to get, and, like, Cloak and Dagger, and particularly Deadpool, I'm not a huge fan of. But the reason why I was kind of leaning towards picking up the Deadpool book too was where there is Deadpool, there is usually Cable, and I love Cable. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll pick this up. But I know that next week is a much lighter week for me than this week. So I was like, well, I'm certain that there will probably be copies left at my shop next week, and it's a lighter week. So I'll if I hear anything through the grapevine about those titles being kick-ass, I will pick those up next Wednesday when I have a later week. But I forgot. I knew I ordered this, but I had no idea when it was coming out. I picked up this trade, Marvel Tales by J. Michael Straczynski. They were these weird, like, team-ups. And, like, the first one was, like, Doctor Doom and Groot. And, like, Nick Fury and Volstagg, maybe? Anyways, bunch of weird, like, random team-ups. And I really like J. Michael Straczynski's writing. But just the team-ups sort of didn't do anything for me. And there was one, I picked up the Spider-Man one, because obviously Peter Parker, written by J. Michael Straczynski, and the art was by Phil Noto, and I'm a big Phil Noto fan. So that one was like oh sure, I don't need to get the rest, but I will definitely pick up the Spider-Man one. I really enjoyed the Spider-Man one. It was great, like really kind of funny. Story about them all going to a restaurant. I don't know. It was bizarre and weird and kooky. And in the process of that, I heard nothing but good things about the rest of the single issues. The other 5 or 6 titles in this. So when I saw the trade come up for pre-order, I was like, I'll give it a shot. So yeah, so I'm actually looking forward to reading the rest of these one-shots, and now I don't have to track them down. I just got it all in this nice collected edition, and if I don't like them, then I can pass this collection off onto someone else, and I still have that Spider-Man issue that I know I really enjoyed. But fingers are crossed that I dig it. And then finally, because I did not have to corral a 3-year-old, I had some time to look through the back issues, and I found this Doctor Strange number 65 from 1984, and I was pretty jazzed about that because it was, I quickly looked it up. I don't like opening issues in the store to figure out who the creative team is. Just because, I don't want to I don't put tape on any of my comics. I put them all in Mylars, and I just fold the thing so I don't ever get... I had a tape pull incident happen when I was a kid to Uncanny X-Men 267, and that scarred me from tape, from then on. So it's, everything's in Mylars, and I just fold the thing in, and when I'm reading in bed at night, my wife loves hearing this as she's trying to fall asleep. Written by Roger Stern, who, if you watched the last video about Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom Triumph and Torment, Roger Stern writes a very good Doctor Strange, and Paul Smith is one of my favorite artists. This appeared from the quick Google search that I did of it, appeared to kind of be a one and done. And, it's the week of, we got Halloween in 2 days. So I figured, before bed tonight, I could read a classic Doctor Strange tale from 1984, to get me in the Halloween mood. And if I like it, I have a few of that Paul Smith era of Doctor Strange, but I was thinking about trying to fill that in the back issue bins, because Paul Smith drawn Doctor Strange sounds like a good time. So that is what I picked up this week. I was bummed to have to go solo. Hope the little guy gets better. Wish him well in the comments. Don't subscribe for him because he doesn't do anything but, sit there and hang out while I do all the peddling. But there's that. So, let's see. Friday is Halloween. I know in one of the earliest videos I did, I talk about what we do for Halloween. So every year, I take full advantage of technically it winds up being 12 cents an issue at my shop. They do this celebration thing where every year on the shop's birthday, they have this huge sidewalk sale. And dollar books wind up being 12 cents. And so anytime that I go to shows, or, you know, sometimes people give me comics, I also order those like trick or read comics that come in the bundles of like 25. I get like the Spidey and His Amazing Friends and the kids one, so that I can give those out to like the little kids. But I have I take that, there's 2 spinner racks in the basement, and I take one of the spinner racks out to the end of the driveway, put up a tent, kind of tent, like a canopy. We're not supposed to get rain this year. It's supposed to be windy, which sucks, but no rain, which is nice. And I put a spinner rack out, and we pass out candy, and all the kids get to pick out comics from the spinner rack, from all the stuff that I grab from sales throughout the year. Or if, like, you know, there's stuff that I read that I'm like, not for me, I throw it out there at Halloween in the hopes that, you know, some kid will appreciate it or enjoy it. So far, so good, I think, on the return. Some of the kids know the house is the comic house and look forward to it, and a few have actually swung by, you know, days later and kind of asked for a little bit of direction into what they're into, and if I had anything else. So a couple of those kids got some like trades and stuff that I had left over of like complete stories because they showed interest, but seems to be a hit, so that's what we do. So I'm sure there'll probably be some type of Halloween video, because my Halloween tradition, comic book wise, other than Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment. Why do I keep on saying Torrent? I don't even do that. Is Days of Future Past, Uncanny X-Men 141 and 142, because that story takes place on Halloween. And so I tend to read that story as the last gasp of Halloween. And then for anyone that doesn't know me, I am Christmas obsessed. The Christmas tree goes up the very next day. So I got a Halloween pumpkin shirt that my mother-in-law got me that was Marvel themed. Figure I'd wear for this one. My hope is to get some type of video out for Halloween. But if not, it's because I've gone in a candy coma and gone full Christmas mode. But fingers crossed that works. So I'm gonna wrap this up because this is way too long. So if you like what I'm doing with the channel, it would be awesome if you subscribed. Leave a comment if you're excited about any of these books or think I'm crazy for picking up that stuff. Or if you've ever read this Doctor Strange issue, let me know what you thought about it. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'd appreciate it. And have a very happy Halloween. I hope you eat lots of candy, see lots of kids dressed up as cool superheroes. That's fun. That rarely happened when we were kids. When I was a kid. If it wasn't me, the other kids weren't really dressing up as superheroes. So it's fun to see all the kids like know this stuff inside out. It's pretty cool time to be a fan. So have a good Halloween. Stay safe. And yeah, enjoy your tricks and treats. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.